Hello everybody, Zalkan here and welcome to Games with Python. Today we are going to talk about rock, paper, scissors. We will start off with an introduction, but if you wish to skip to the coding part, you may do so by checking the timestamps in the description. Rock, paper, scissors is a hand game usually played between two people, in which both players simultaneously forms one of the three shapes with an outstretched hand. These shapes are rock, paper, and scissors. The rules of the game is fairly simple. The players must simultaneously choose a hand gesture and then compare which hand gesture is stronger to decide the winner. The basis is that scissors beats paper, paper beats rock, and rock beats scissors. Here is a summary of the possible outcome. A tie may occur when both players chooses the same hand. Otherwise, either player wins or loses. Statistically speaking, the probabilities for each result are equal to 33.33%. Since rock, paper, scissors is a simple game, we'll also try to extend this project to a variation called Rock-Paper-Scissors-Lizard-Spock. This variation is invented by Sam Kass and popularized by the Big Bang Theory series. The rules for this variation is similar to the original game, only with the addition of two more hand gestures, Lizard and Spock. Here is a summary of the possible outcome for the variation. Just as with the original game, a tie may occur when both players chooses the same hand. Otherwise, either player wins or loses. And here is the statistics for the variation. Unlike the original game, however, the probabilities for each result are no longer equal. Nevertheless, the probability for each player to win are both equal, which is good since it indicates a fair chance for both players. The variation simply lowers the chances of having a drawn game. And with that, we are finished with the introduction. Now, onto the code. Here we are in our IDE, and we actually have three options on how to implement this project. The first option is to have the same player play on the same computer or device. However, when one types in, the other sees, and which is not a fair game. The second option is to use the socket programming, where players can play on different devices, and they won't be able to see each other's hand gesture choice. And the third one is the one that we're going to choose, which is we're going to implement an opponent, which is going to be an artificial intelligence, but what it does is actually a simple random choice among the three hand gestures. So what we're going to do first here is we're going to import the random module, and this is actually a built-in module in Python, so there's no need for additional installations. And then we're going to implement the game mainly with just the two rules. The first is that players simultaneously choose a hand, and the second part of the game is to determine the winner. And we'll start off with the first part of the game, where both players simultaneously choose a hand. So on how to implement that is we're going to take the choice of the first player. To do that, we're going to ask for the input from the user. And let's just specify the choices for the user here. Rock, paper, and scissors. And basically what the input function does is it's going to take in a keyboard input from the user. And what this returns is actually a string. And we would also like to include the dot lower, which is a string method. And what it does is anything that is typed in by the user, whether it is an uppercase or a lowercase or combination of both, is going to transform everything into lowercase. And then we're actually going to get the player to hand gesture, but for this case this will be our AI. And how we're going to randomize from among the three options is just to use the random module that we just imported, random, and then use the choice method or function. And what it does is, I'm going to explain in a minute, but basically it's going to take in an iterable, and as an example of an iterable is a list, and within the list we just simply type in the options and scissors. And what the choice does is, given an iterable with the options of rock, paper, scissors, it's just going to choose one among the options. And lastly here, we're going to print the player 2 choice. And we're going to use an F string here, and let me just finish typing here and explain what this does. So what this does is, an F string is actually just a string. As you can see here, we have the open and the closing quotations, but preceded with the F character here. And what it means is everything inside the F string will be evaluated, and inside the quotations, whenever we see the curly brackets here, that means that any variable inside that brackets will be converted or evaluated to a string. So let's say, for example, in our player 2, it is randomly choosing the paper, and what will be generated here will be player 2 chose paper. And now we have kind of simultaneously choose the hand gesture for the two players. Now we are going to evaluate their choices, and basically the first one that we're going to check is if they are going to be a tie, and for that to happen, both players must have the same hand gesture. So we're just going to compare with an if statement, player 1 equals player 2, then we're gonna inform that it's a tie. But player 1 can win the game if it is a rock, and player 2 is scissors. Player 1 wins. And yeah, so we may simply just implement these lines 7 more times to check for all the possible cases for both players 1 and player 2. But the way I actually want to do this is to actually just pair player 1 and player 2 and check for the pair rock and scissors. And it's going to be perhaps a bit more, not really complicated, but yeah, maybe a bit more complicated, but it's actually easier to read. And the way I want to do that is just to take in the pair player 1 and player 2 and check if it is inside this pair rock and scissors. So what this does is, with this part of the statement, what it's going to do is it's going to iterate through every element inside this list, and then once we have this element, then what it's going to do is it's going to do the unpacking And what the unpacking does or means in Python is that what we have here is a tuple with two elements inside, rock and scissors. And what we also have here is a tuple with two elements, player 1 and player 2, or variables. And what the unpacking does is it's basically just going to assign the rock to the player 1 and the scissors to the player 2. And then we can actually just type in every other possibilities here. We can type in the scissors winning against the paper, and the paper winning against the rock, like so. And these are the options or the possibilities that for which player 1 can play against player 2. And if this statement is not satisfied, nor are they equal, then what it means is that player 1, or rather player 2 wins. Now let's try to test this out and input, let's say, rock. Player 2 chose rock, so we have a tie. Let's try paper. And player 2 chose rock, so we win, paper over rock. And let's try scissors. And player 2 chose rock, and that means that player 2 wins. Now let's try to extend this project to the variation rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. And to do that, let's just create another script here. Let's call it rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. And we just simply copy everything from here and paste it here, and we're just going to do some tweakings in our code. And so basically we're just going to add here from in the options lizard and Spock, as well as for the player 2 we're going to add the other two hand gestures, lizard and Spock. And we'll also add here in the possibilities all the other possible options, and that should be it should include Spock vaporizes rock, and lizard it's paper, and Spock smashes scissors, and lizard poisons Spock, and paper disproves Spock, rock crushes lizard, and scissors decapitates lizard. So that's it for the variation, and I think we're done. So let's just try to test this variation. Let's try and choose lizard. Player 2 chose Spock. Lizard poisons Spock, so we win. And then let's try Spock. Player 2 chose rock. Spock vaporizes rock, so we win the game. So that's basically for the rock, paper, scissors and the rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock.